Good morning, friends and folks. I'm waking up today with a coffee and a commission. My roommate Felix requested a pair of earrings for his friend's birthday, and this friend is just getting their ears pierced, so this will be one of their first pairs of earrings. With that in mind, I want to design something lightweight and simple. Lightweight because their ears are not yet used to the sensation or weight of wearing earrings, and simple because they haven't really discovered their earring or jewelry style yet, so I want this pair to be one that stays with them as they grow. Also, because they're new to earrings, I want to use a niobium ear wire in case they have any metal sensitivities they aren't yet aware of. And while I've never met this person, Felix did send me their Instagram for reference, and they have a fair complexion, light hair, and blue eyes, all of which I want to complement with the tones of oxidized copper and accents of blue beads. Now, I've mentioned before that I'm not really big into planning or sketching out pieces, but on the rare occasions I do, it's usually for a commission. Even then, I prefer to send clients finished pieces rather than sketches because most of the time the design I sketch is really just a starting point. The design will change as I'm making it, and it's hard to predict exactly how much it may or may not change. So, even though my roommate only requested one pair of earrings, I'll be making 3 pairs, and whichever 2 he doesn't want, I will just sell elsewhere. Which, yes, you heard me say 3, and there are indeed 4 sketches here. But this third sketch, I don't think I'll be able to pull off in the way I'm envisioning it, so I'm just gonna skip over it and focus on the other 3. Now that I've done a lot of talking, thanks for bearing with me, and let's just jump in. For this first pair, I'll be starting with a longer length of 22 gauge niobium, which will be the wire that goes through the ear. I'll also be weaving in a shorter segment of 22 gauge copper as an accent, as well as structural support. With a 22 base, I would normally want a 32 weaving wire, especially for earrings, but I don't have 32 gauge copper on hand right now, so I will be settling for a 30 gauge, and honestly, I think that'll be fine. Now, the other 2 designs I'm making today are side-facing, so to speak, so there's no need to worry about symmetry there. These are the only pair that are front-facing, and each earring has a very distinct triangle shape. As I've mentioned before, when I make asymmetric earrings, I always prefer to make them mirror each other rather than identical to each other, so that way they frame the face a bit better. So as I build these up, I want to be sure whatever motions I'm doing with the wire of one earring, I'm doing the opposite motion on the other one. Because these are smaller and simpler in nature, it's easy enough to build up the 2 base components first, perfect and finish them, and then weave them together with my 30 gauge. Now at the end here, I did want to add some kind of blue accent, both to complement the wearer's eyes as well as this copper that we're going to oxidize. And I have these drilled lapis slices lying around that I absolutely love, so I'm going to attach those with some 24 gauge wire at the bottom, and these babies are done. There we have it. Now for these second earrings, I want to incorporate 3 Larimar briolettes onto each earring down at the base. Incorporating briolettes into a weave can be tricky, but all it takes is a gentle hand to be sure that they're oriented correctly. This is an example of a situation where my final product may not align with my original sketch, because while in my mind I can see these briolettes at the base of each of these earrings, in reality they may be difficult to incorporate, so I need to be willing to improvise. But we're getting ahead of ourselves there. For this pair, I'm also going to be using a 22 and 30 gauge wire, and I have the 22 gauge niobium as the main frame that goes through the ear with a smaller piece of 22 gauge copper for added structure and design. And with that, our second pair is complete. Now for this third pair, I'm also skeptical as to how this design will hold up, so we'll see. I'm just using one length of 22 gauge niobium with no support wire. And even though niobium is pretty rigid already, I'm going to go ahead and hammer the shape of this component to temper it as well as flatten it. I'm going to be sure to only hammer the dropping shape of this component and not the part that actually will go through the ear, because I want that section to keep its round shape. Now for the body of the earring, I'll be weaving my weave between these two lines, incorporating beads as I go. Something you'll see in this video, and I'll go over a little more next week, is that when you're incorporating beads into a weave, you'll want to thread those beads onto your spool of wire before you begin weaving. Because think about it, if you start your weave and then get to a point where you want to incorporate your beads, you then have one end of your wire woven into your piece and the other at the bottom of your spool. You'll then have to cut your wire to add your beads, which isn't inherently a bad thing, but it does mean that you may run out of weaving wire before your weave is actually complete and you'll need to incorporate a new wire. This isn't the biggest problem in the world, but it can visually disrupt your design, but the disruption is honestly so minimal that probably no one will notice unless they're as obsessive as I am. Now I'm just going to be weaving back and forth in a figure-8 motion while going around each base wire one additional time to secure the weave in place. And when I eventually get into weaving tutorials, this will probably be the first weave I go over. I'm just going to keep going back and forth until I reach a density and a length that I like, and cut and tuck my tail. And we are good to go. And there we have it, 3 pairs of earrings for him to choose from. Whichever 2 he doesn't pick will be first available to my patrons on Patreon, and if there are any pairs left after that, those will be available to my followers on Instagram. You can find links and everything down in the description, but for now I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I would love to know if you have a favorite of any of these designs, so feel free to leave me a comment. And until next time, take care and bead well.